You ever wonder what really happens inside the most dangerous gangs in America? Beyond the headlines, the music, the street glamour, we're talking about the Bloods, the loyalty, the power, the bloodshed. But what if the very thing holding them together is also their biggest weakness? I'm about to reveal the hidden cracks, the untold betrayals, and the one fatal flaw that could destroy the entire gang from the inside out. This ain't no fiction. This is the raw, real truth from an ex-Bloods member who lived it, bled for it, and watched it all fall apart. Get ready, because once you hear this, you'll never look at the streets the same way again.
Yo, listen up. This ain't no fairy tale. This the raw truth from the concrete jungle of South Atlanta, where red flags ain't just colors. They fly higher than hope, telling you where you stand, who you loyal to. For Marcus "Ghost" Miller, born and raised in this cold-ass game, loyalty to the set meant more than blood ties. It was everything. He was just a lil cat, barely 11 years old, when he started running errands for the older homies, the Bloods from his block. Picking up packages, dropping off paper, keeping his mouth shut. He learned quick the unspoken rules, the nods, the quiet threats. By 13, he was initiated, a fresh face with a fresh cut, ready to earn his stripes. That day, when they put that red rag on him, it felt like he finally found a family that truly understood him, a brotherhood forged in struggle and defiance. By 16, Ghost wasn't just another body on the block. He was feared. His eyes held a coldness that spoke volumes, a silent promise of violence for anyone who dared cross his path or the sets. Guns, codes, and death were his daily gospel. He learned to move in shadows, to speak in riddles, to trust no one outside his immediate circle. The streets taught him lessons that no school ever could. He wasn't just in the gang, he lived it, breathed it, bled for it. The Bloods weren't just his crew, they were his family, his religion, his entire world. The heat in Atlanta in those summers was oppressive, matching the pressure cooker vibe of the streets. Every siren was a warning, every strange car a potential threat. Ghost knew this life was a gamble, but he was all in. He was rising fast, making moves, earning respect, not just from his set, but even from rival crews who knew his name meant business. He was building a reputation, brick by bloody brick, a future he thought was set in stone within the Bloods empire. He was just a kid, but the streets of South Atlanta molded him into a feared Blood. What made Ghost rise so fast in the ranks? You won't believe the brutal truth behind the loyalty. Subscribe now and don't miss a single chapter of this raw, real story. Insert your YouTube channel link here. Disclaimer. This is a fictional story based on real-life events. Ghost's rise through the Bloods ranks was something to behold. He was smart, cold, and efficient, qualities that made him stand out in a world built on chaos. Shot callers, the OGs who ran the show, started trusting him with bigger moves. He wasn't just about slinging on the block anymore. He was getting involved in interstate operations, connecting with Blood sets in other states, expanding the territory, making serious paper. His reputation for getting things done, no questions asked, opened doors he never knew existed. He started moving weight across state lines, facilitating deals that pulled in six figures. The money was different, the stakes were higher, and the game felt more legitimate, like a real business, but with a constant threat of violence hanging over everything. He saw how the power worked, how the real money was made. Not just on the street corner, but in the shadows of the bigger picture. Then came the call that changed everything. He was chosen for something even bigger, a game changer, transporting 25 kilos of pure cocaine from the US to Portugal. A route few knew existed, a secret line that would open up a whole new world of international business for the Bloods. It was supposed to be simple, quick, clean, a testament to his loyalty and his skill. The kind of mission that made legends within the set. Ghost felt that rush, that mix of pride and pure adrenaline. This was it, the ultimate test.
He flew out, slick and smooth, blending in,
carrying the weight of the set's future on his shoulders. The cold air of Portugal hit him different, a stark contrast to the humid Atlanta nights. He thought he was prepared for anything. But what he didn't see coming was the cost of that power, the unseen trap waiting for him in a foreign land. This simple run was about to turn into a nightmare, something that would shake him to his core and shatter everything he thought he knew about loyalty. Chapter 3. Alone in a foreign land, the ambush. The moment Ghost stepped off that plane in Portugal, he knew something was off. The air was different, heavy, even for a seasoned hustler like him. The plan was solid, had been checked and rechecked by the shot callers back in Atlanta. 25 keys of pure, high-grade cocaine, carefully hidden, ready for delivery to a contact in Lisbon. Simple, quick, clean, that's what they said. But the contact wasn't there. No welcoming face, no quiet nod. Just the cold, impersonal glare of a foreign airport. Ghost, always sharp, felt a knot tighten in his gut. This wasn't how they did business. He moved with caution, found a discreet hotel and waited. He put out feelers, used coded messages, trying to find out what went wrong. The answers he got back were vague, unsettling. Then it hit him. This wasn't a messed up deal. It was a setup. The contact was compromised, playing both sides, looking to flip the product and cut out the bloods. Word on the street in Lisbon, whispered through the dark alleys, was that a rival crew, some ruthless Eastern European mob, was involved. They wanted the weight, and they wanted it bad. Ghost was alone. No backup from the set, no familiar faces. Just him, his street smarts, and the heavy burden of 25 keys that now felt like a lead weight in his stomach. He tried to negotiate, to talk his way out, to salvage the deal. But in the cold streets of Lisbon, talk was cheap. They ambushed him in a narrow alleyway, far from the tourist lights, a dark, rain-slicked trap. 3 heavy hitters, looking like they were straight out of a brutal movie scene, came at him. This wasn't about negotiation anymore. This was about survival, and Ghost knew the only way out was through. Chapter 4. The rain of betrayal, and 3 bodies dropped. The alley reeked of stale rain and imminent danger. The 3 rivals, big, silent, and cold-eyed, moved like trained killers. Ghost didn't even hesitate. Instinct, honed by years of surviving the brutal streets of South Atlanta, took over. He wasn't just a transporter, he was a soldier, a blood, and he was outnumbered in a foreign land with no backup. The fight was quick, brutal, and silent, save for the grunts and the wet thuds. Ghost moved like a phantom, quick and precise, using every dirty trick the streets had taught him. He disarmed the first one with a swift twist, snapped an arm, then used his momentum against the second. He felt a sharp pain in his side, a glancing blow, but he pushed through it. The third one, big and slow, went down hard with a precise strike to the throat. In less than 48 hours from landing in Lisbon, 3 bodies dropped. The rain washed over the alley, mixing with the dark stains on the pavement, a chilling testament to his survival. He looked down at the lifeless forms, his breath ragged, the adrenaline still pumping. No backup, no loyalty, just survival. The illusion of brotherhood, the sacred bond of the Bloods, felt like a cruel joke in that moment. He was out there, on his own, paying the ultimate price for a mission gone wrong. The weight of the bodies, the unspoken consequences, pressed down on him. Ghost managed to ditch the bodies in a desolate area on the outskirts of Lisbon, the kind of place where things got forgotten. He knew the clock was ticking. The police in Europe operated differently. They were methodical, patient, and they wouldn't stop until they found out who was responsible. He was a ghost no more. He was a hunted man. His name would soon be on every cop's lips, and the trail would lead straight back to the Bloods in Atlanta. 3 bodies in Lisbon, and Ghost is on the run. The Bloods left him high and dry, but he's a survivor. Can he escape the international manhunt? Subscribe now to see what happens next in this explosive real-life drama. Disclaimer. This is a fictional story based on real-life events. Ghost was a hunted man in Lisbon. He tried to disappear, changed his clothes, cut his hair, slept in different cheap motels every night. But the streets of Europe were different from the familiar alleys of South Atlanta. Here, surveillance was everywhere, and the police worked with a cold efficiency that left little room for error. The image of the American suspect was already circulated, pulled from airport cameras and a blurry shot near the ambush site. He tried to reach out, desperately calling numbers that were supposed to be solid contacts, safe houses, but the lines were dead. The Bloods had cut him off. He was a liability, a loose end that could expose the entire international operation. The silence from Atlanta was louder than any shout, confirming his worst fear. He was completely alone. The brotherhood he bled for had abandoned him. Days turned into a blur of paranoia and hunger. He attempted to move the remaining cocaine, offering it at a discount to other independent dealers, just enough to get some cash for a fake passport and a ticket out of the country. But word of the triple homicide had spread, and no one wanted to touch him or his product. He was too hot. The police were closing in, a methodical hunt across the city. They weren't just looking for a killer. They were looking for a link, a connection to the larger network. Ghost could feel their breath on his neck, the invisible net tightening. He knew it was only a matter of time. The dream of international expansion, the pride of the mission, had crumbled into a nightmare of isolation and impending capture. Every shadow seemed to hold a police officer, every siren a personal warning. The inevitable finally caught up with Ghost. He was cornered in a run-down apartment building in a forgotten part of Lisbon, a place that reeked of desperation, not defiance. It wasn't a dramatic shootout like in the movies. It was quiet, precise. Officers from the Portuguese National Police, backed by intelligence from Interpol and whispers from the DEA back in the US, surrounded the building. He was caught trying to slip out a back door, a desperate attempt to find one last sliver of freedom. They moved fast, no wasted motion. Ghost didn't even have time to reach for the small piece he kept tucked in his waistband. He was cuffed, shoved against a wall, the cold metal biting into his wrists. His face, once full of a youthful swagger, was now etched with exhaustion and the bitter taste of defeat. They found the fake documents, the burner phones, the remnants of the untouched cocaine. Evidence that screamed international drug trafficker. The interrogation was relentless, days blurring into weeks. He held his ground, gave them nothing that could compromise the Bloods or the larger operation back home. Loyalty, even when betrayed, ran deep. But the real interrogation happened in his own mind. Years behind bars, first in Portugal, then after his extradition back to the US, stripped away the illusions of brotherhood. He watched from inside how close friends turned snitches, how leaders sold out their own soldiers for a lighter sentence. He saw kids walk into the same cycle of violence he once called life, blindly pledging allegiance to a system that would inevitably chew them up and spit them out. The code, the family, the loyalty, it was all a facade, a cruel trick to keep the cogs turning. Ghost had survived the streets, but the walls of the prison broke something deeper inside him. The belief in the very thing he'd bled for. The years behind bars were a slow, grinding torture for Ghost. First in a cold Portuguese prison, then, after his extradition, in a federal penitentiary back in the US. The concrete walls, the clanging of cell doors, the monotonous routine. It was all designed to break a man. And it worked, but not in the way the system intended. It broke the illusion, the one he had clung to since he was a boy. The illusion of unbreakable brotherhood within the Bloods. From inside, he saw the true nature of the game. He watched as homies he'd bled with, cats he'd shared a cell with, flipped on their own for a lighter sentence. The loyalty that was supposed to be thicker than blood evaporated under the pressure of plea deals and federal investigations. Shot callers, those revered OGs who preached the code, were cutting deals, sending their soldiers down for decades while they copped a lighter sentence. He saw the kids coming in, fresh-faced and full of misguided loyalty, ready to repeat the same mistakes. They swore by the set just like he once did, and he knew, with a bitter certainty, that they too would be chewed up and spit out by the same system. by the same family they pledged their lives to. The red flag, once a symbol of pride, now seemed like a warning, a trap. Ghost reflected on his own journey, his rapid climb, the trust placed in him, the international mission. It was all part of a larger machine, a system that used and discarded its members when they became liabilities. He wasn't just in the gang anymore. He was outside of it, looking in, seeing the hidden cracks, the rot from within. The cold, hard truth was this: the very thing that supposedly held the Bloods together, the unwavering loyalty, was also its biggest weakness, a flaw that could tear the entire gang apart. Years in prison stripped away the illusions for Ghost. He saw the true colors of the Bloods: betrayal, sellouts, and a cycle of violence. Is loyalty truly their greatest strength, or their fatal flaw? Subscribe now to hear Ghost reveal the hidden cracks that could destroy the entire gang. Disclaimer: this is a fictional story based on real-life events. Ghost, now a free man, but forever marked by the years behind bars and the crimson stain of the Bloods, began to speak his truth. Not for clout, not for revenge against those who abandoned him, but because he'd seen what truly held the gang together, and what could tear it apart from within. He'd seen the hidden cracks. The first, and most corrosive, was greed. Everybody talk about loyalty, right? Ghost says, his voice raspy from years of disuse. But when big money involved, that loyalty go out the window. It ain't about the set no more, it's about my pockets. Cats selling out their own homies for a bigger cut, for a nicer whip, for a chain that shine a little brighter. That's how the trust erodes. He described how money flowed through the ranks, corrupting even the OGs, turning brotherhood into a cutthroat business. The second crack was fear. Not fear of rival gangs or the police, but fear within the set. They control you with fear, Ghost explains, his eyes distant. Fear of being called a snitch, fear of getting disciplined by your own crew. That fear keep cats quiet, keep them from questioning even when they know something ain't right. It ain't real loyalty, it's forced submission. He revealed stories of internal disciplines that were more about power plays than maintaining order, silencing dissent by brutal example. He points to specific incidents he witnessed, subtle shifts in power dynamics, whispers of betrayal that spread like wildfire, weakening the foundations. When the fear of your own homie is stronger than the fear of the enemy, that ain't no family. That's a trap. Ghost's testimony painted a grim picture of a once solid organization, now riddled with internal corruption and a pervasive sense of distrust that was slowly, silently, eating it alive. Ghost continued to lay bare the truth about the Bloods, exposing the mechanisms that slowly corroded the gang from the inside. He talked about the code breakers, not just the blatant snitches, but those who subtly bent the rules for personal gain, creating precedents for others to follow. The code ain't sacred no more, Ghost says, his voice flat. It's a suggestion. When money or self-preservation come first, the code becomes whatever you need it to be in that moment. And when everybody doing that, then ain't no code at all. He described how these small transgressions, initially dismissed as minor deviations, multiplied over time. The trust, once the bedrock of their unity, began to crumble. He detailed how leaders, the very shot callers who enforced the code, were often the first to break it in secret, making deals that benefited them personally at the expense of their soldiers. They preach loyalty to the streets, but they loyal to their bank accounts, Ghost points out, a hint of bitterness in his tone. The seeds of doubt were sown by these actions, creating a silent, internal discord. Members started questioning, not openly, but in hushed conversations, in guarded glances. They saw the hypocrisy, the disparity between the preached ideals and the lived reality. This internal questioning, Ghost argued, was far more dangerous than any external threat. When your own soldiers start doubting the general, that's when the whole army fall apart. He shared stories of younger members, disillusioned by what they saw, subtly pulling away, refusing to participate in certain operations, or simply disappearing. They weren't turning snitch, but they were no longer all in. This quiet rebellion, fueled by disillusionment and the erosion of trust, was a slow-acting poison, weakening the gang's ranks and its cohesion, making it vulnerable in ways no outside force ever could. Ghost, standing resolute, his eyes holding the weight of his past, finally revealed the one fatal flaw that no one inside the Bloods was willing to admit, the one thing that could truly destroy the entire gang from the inside out. "It ain't the police, it ain't rival gangs, it ain't even the snitches," Ghost stated, his voice now strong, filled with a newfound clarity. "The real flaw, the one that's gonna implode the whole empire, is the illusion of brotherhood." He explains that the very foundation the gang is built upon, the idea of an unbreakable family, a bond stronger than anything, is a lie. "They tell you it's family. They tell you they'll bleed for you. Ride or die," he continued. "But when the chips are down, when the heat on, when personal gain come into play, that brotherhood disappear like smoke. They'll sacrifice you, sell you out, let you rot, all to save their own skin or make a buck. I seen it. I lived it." He recounted the cold, hard moments of his own abandonment in Portugal, the silence from Atlanta, the lack of backup when he faced death alone. He concluded his testimony with a stark warning. The Bloods ain't a family, it's a business, a brutal, unforgiving business that uses the word brotherhood to manipulate and control. And when enough cats realize that, when they see through the illusion, then there ain't no loyalty left. It's every man for himself. And when that happens, the whole thing crumble. That's the fatal flaw. That's what's going to destroy him. Ghost's story isn't just a tale of survival. It's a chilling exposé of the internal rot that plagues even the most formidable criminal organizations. His journey from a feared Blood to a truth-teller reveals that the true threat to a gang's power often comes not from external enemies, but from the very lies it tells itself. Ghost just dropped the ultimate truth bomb. The Blood's biggest strength is actually their fatal flaw. Did this testimony shake your perception of gang life? If you want more raw, unfiltered stories like this, subscribe to the channel and join our community. Disclaimer: this is a fictional story based on real-life events.